Hello, everyone. This is Jeffrey Kerr. I'm here today with a very special guest. She's a celebrated nationally published photographer with a brand new book out. It's titled Marilyn Forever, Marilyn Monroe, A Symbol of Hope. Please welcome Amy Gaskin.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey. Lovely to be here with you today.
Hey, likewise. So to start things off, would you mind telling us about the book?
I would be happy to. So, the book came about when I first saw lipstick on Marilyn Monroe's crypt. That was back when remember when we were afraid to touch our groceries during the pandemic?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I saw that and I was so curious to know what it was about Marilyn Monroe that drew people to her in such a way, especially during the pandemic when we didn't even have the ability, most people weren't even supposed to be out on the streets. So the idea that people were coming to her grave and kissing her grave, I found quite remarkable, especially given the time that we were in. And so I began to interview visitors to find out why they love Marilyn. And I was so surprised that, it was all ages who came to her crypt. It was all walks of life. Some people were old enough to have been alive when Marilyn was alive, but many, certainly I would say most, were not. And that was very surprising to me that she was appealing to all ages and themes began to emerge. So I realized that this was a lot more than Marilyn Monroe. This was people who were relating to Marilyn's personal story of overcoming tremendous challenges in her life to become a star. And for all kinds of different reasons, people were relating to her on that level. And that's what I found interesting. So, as you see the cover of the book, for instance, you've got many people dressed as Marilyn, but they are not playing dress up. They are dressing as Marilyn because they see her as a symbol of hope to fight cancer. And that I found remarkable. Marilyn herself didn't have cancer, but she did overcome a lot. She was very gutsy and determined during her lifetime. And for these people, she's a symbol of hope. If we can dress as Marilyn, we're going to swim in the ocean dressed as Marilyn, and we're going to raise money for cancer research support and prevention.
Hmm. Yeah, I was going to ask what inspired you to put this book together, and well, you already answered that. So,
Great.
yeah. And now, prior to this, how familiar were you with Marilyn Monroe?
So I actually, that's a really good question, Jeffrey. I did not know a lot about Marilyn. I'd maybe seen some portions of her movies, but I didn't know very much about her. And as I am a journalist, I felt it very important to get the facts firsthand from people who either knew Marilyn and could tell me a story of an interaction that they had with her, or people who are relating to her today in different ways. So I think it actually helped me that I didn't know very much about her beforehand. I didn't have a certain impression either way about her. And so I think that really helped learn about Marilyn through people who really love her. And I then contacted the president of the fan club and asked for some good, books and he helped fact check certain things so that I would be sure that if somebody told me a story about Marilyn, that I could verify that it was true before printing it in my book. So the book is full of pictures and interviews and stories of how people relate to her today.
Hmm. And from all the research you've done, were there any interesting facts about Marilyn that surprised you most?
Yes, there were a lot. So I did not know the story about her helping Ella Fitzgerald. There's a story that apparently a number of people know, and it goes something like this. The exact facts about which day and which club it was are a little bit in question, but in the 50s, Ella Fitzgerald was, trying to get various jobs at big jazz clubs. And Marilyn is said to have gone to a big nightclub owner and told the man to please book Ella and that she would be there and support. And she's pictured a number of times with Ella, perhaps at other events over the years. We don't know. I don't know that it's actually clear, which club, which day it was. But what I did find was an actual interview with Ella Fitzgerald in a magazine where Ella discusses how Marilyn helped her so much during her career and how she owes Marilyn a debt of gratitude. And Ella described Marilyn as somebody who was a bit ahead of her times and she didn't really know it. So that was really something. I didn't know about that. I didn't know that she had been in an orphanage. I didn't know that she had spent a lot of time in foster care, going from home to home. She actually left high school after 10th grade to get married. Her foster care situation was changing, and by getting married, she was able to be on her own in a legal sense. So I didn't know about her childhood and the way she had to move so much. I felt that that was really, really compelling. So those are all really those are things I didn't know. She had her own production in Hollywood. I'm sorry, her own production company in Hollywood, and I didn't know about that. So I mean, there are, gosh, I could be here for hours. There were many things I didn't know about Marilyn, but those especially come to mind.
Hmm. Yeah, and of all the films and performances she's done, I'm curious. Do you happen to have a favorite film and/or performance of hers?
So let's see. I would say I have a favorite film, but it's not for the reasons that you might think. I especially like Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, but the reason that I like it is I happen to have met Jane Russell and gotten to know.
Oh,
So Jane is prominently, obviously, she is in the duo with Marilyn. So I especially like that movie, but that's, a lot of maybe the first thing that I saw with Marilyn. So I would say I would go with that one.
hmm, not a bad option.
Right.
Yeah, 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 and obviously this year marks the 100th anniversary of her birth, and she, of course, sadly didn't live a long life. And sometimes people do question, wonder what their careers would have been had they lived longer. Do you have any theories?
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't. I I would certainly imagine that she would have continued in her career had she lived. She was a big star when she died, and she was a remarkable actress. So I think she would have continued to have a very big career. That's my guess. It's Hollywood. It's hard to know, right? But I do believe she would have certainly kept going.
Oh yeah, and and obviously as she would have gotten older, also, well, roles for her obviously would have become more scarce, given problems people have with, well, Hollywood team appears to have with older actors.
It's possible. I mean, I really don't know. The scope of the book that I've written really focuses on how people see her today, and it is through their eyes that this book came to be. So there is mention of a number of Marilyn's movies and the themes that they elicit through the people who relate to her. But I feel my expertise really is most with the people who I've interviewed I worked on it for over 6 years and went through thousands of images to choose the ones that are in the book. So a number of the images were also in National Geographic, which is, it's not a publication that you normally think of with Marilyn Monroe. That's not what you would think. But this is a different look at it. And how do we relate to somebody who has died and what lives on when we're not here anymore? And in Marilyn's case, it is many acts of kindness. Another story was she was friends with people who were openly gay. And back then, it was less frequent that a big star might associate in that way, or, she was incredibly accepting of all people. And I find that beautiful. And that is another thing that Ella said, that she was really ahead of her time. And I think that that's beautiful. So much of what people are relating to today is the way she carried herself. Like if she went into an orphanage, she would go into an orphanage, for instance, and take pictures with the children. And I have seen the images and I have been told that she would actively seek out the Black children. And I think that's really beautiful, you know? She just was very, very inclusive. Like we're all in this together. And I think that that is a big message in the book.
And if you were given the chance to do another book on another icon of pop culture, who would you be most interested in?
Oh, goodness. I'm not really sure. I think I would really need to spend some time learning about the different cultures around that person and what their impact is today. So, having just put this book out and it's just coming out now, I'm so focused on working on this one, but I imagine there will be certainly I would love to do more books in the future.
Well, hey, gotta keep on keeping on.
Exactly, right, Jeffrey?
Hmm. Yes. Now, going back to the beginning, how did you first get started in photography?
So I first got started in photography after actually I worked in the music industry for quite a while, and I left that and felt that, it wasn't you think what your dream job would be, right? And sometimes your dream job isn't the dream that you thought it would be. And that was what happened. And I left one job feeling it wasn't a match where I happened to be. And I had always seen, like my grandparents had remember the Life magazines. And I remember when all the cousins, most of the cousins in my family, the ones that were close in age, there were three boys, and then there was me. And the boys would want to do their own thing, as you could understand that, right? When we were little. And I was pretty fascinated by these magazines that my grandparents had. And I would look at the pictures and I just found it very moving, the people who documented what our world is today. So I always had it in the back of my mind that photography would be really interesting. I hadn't really owned a camera. I didn't have any evidence of it, but I went back to school after doing a master's in business and being in the music industry. So I had an MBA and I went back to school for photography. I took classes at a local community college where there were many, many wonderful teachers because, here in Los Angeles, I do live in Los Angeles. There are so many phenomenal photographers here in town, and a lot of them were teaching part-time at this school. So I learned from them, and I always thought, maybe I could do photography, but then as I was in school, I had a number of people tell me, "Hey, you could do this." And so I started doing that. I really did want to do photojournalism. But I also learned commercial photography, so I can photograph anything from a product to a wedding to pretty much, when you go through photo school, at least the one that I went to, we really learned how to do many, many things. So, and that was how, and one thing led to another. And I'm just so grateful that it's my path now.
Oh, that's kind of similar with me, where, well, I went to college to study filmmaking, and while I was in college, I ended up, well, found myself working in journalism, and so that's why I've spent
Oh, perfect.
over,
See, there you
yeah,
go.
yeah, over the past
Right?
decade working in. I mean, I'm certainly wouldn't rule out, working in, the local filmmaking scene around here at some point, just,
Right.
but luckily I've got journalism to fall back on.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
great. Yep. And you're doing it now, so that's perfect.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And for those who'd like to pursue a career in photography, where do you think would be a good place to start?
So photography is a very, very difficult career. I would say the thing that I think gets most of us who are in it through it is doing something that you really love, right? So the idea, I didn't think of it as a career in photography, right? It isn't about the camera so much as I look at the camera as really a passport to meeting all kinds of people and cultures. So for me, I I would say I would really advise that people photograph the things that they are excited about or the people, or maybe they want to photograph fashion or they want to photograph cars or whatever that might be. But I think it's so important. It's such a difficult business that I think, definitely do as much as you can of what you love because the financial rewards are becoming less and less as we go forward, especially with, everybody thinks they're a photographer. They have an iPhone, right? And, it is true. It's not the camera that takes the picture, it's the person. So the best camera is the one in your hands. If you want to do it, just get started with it. Use your phone, use whatever camera you have, and you can learn a lot by doing even just that. So I would say just go with what you're most passionate about.
And before we go, do you have any other upcoming projects that you'd like to share with us?
So actually, this work is going to be shown in a large New York photo gallery, some fine art prints. The opening for that will be June 18th. It'll be a large group show. Well, I don't know how large the show is. I shouldn't say it'll be large, but it will be a group show with other photographers, and that will be at the Staley Wise Gallery in New York City. And it's a really, really wonderful gallery with phenomenal photographers' work in there. And I'm very, very proud to be included in that show.
Hmm. Well, hey, to anyone watching, if you happen to be in New York within the next month or so, hey, probably worth checking out.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jeffrey.
Yes, so Amy, I thank you very much for devoting your time to this conversation. It was great getting to talk to you.
Absolutely. Same here, Jeffrey. Thank you.
And for those who'd like to keep up with your career, where can people find you on the internet?
So I'm at amygaskin.com. That's AMYGASKIN. and .com, and my Instagram is Amy Gaskin Photo. And actually, I should let you know that the book is available now exclusively on my website. It is an art book. It's printed on fine Italian art paper, and so it will be available through my site. Not just widely available. It's a limited run, so I am having everything go through my site, which is really, really nice to be able to do.
Well, yeah, Jeff Bezos already has enough money. He doesn't need any more on Amazon.
There you go, right? That's funny.
Yeah, so thanks again for joining me today, Amy. This was great.
Thank you too, Jeffrey. I appreciate it a lot. Thanks.